Hello, everyone. Throughout this presentation, we will be discussing the film, The Producers. The members for this group include Paige Lewis, Michael Harold, and Jacob Ewing. To start off our discussion, we wanted to offer some background information on this film. It's directed by Mel Brooks. The writer is also Mel Brooks. Max Baileystock is played by Zero Stell. Leo Bloom is played by Gene Wilder, and it is considered a satirical dark comedy. The film had a limited release in 1967, and due to the release being a disaster, Embassy's executives refused to sell it. It wasn't until November 10, 1968, that the film had gained enough support to have a full release, although it took a couple years before the film gained higher approval ratings. In 1969, it won one Oscar for Best Writing, Story, and Screenplay. In 1969, it was also nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role. And again in 1969, Zero Mostel was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture Actor. And in 1969, again, Mel Brooks was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Screenplay. Mel Brooks also won the Writers Guild of America for the Best Written American Original Screenplay. And he was also nominated again for the Writers Guild of America for Best Written American Comedy. And in 2001, it was made into a Broadway musical. 2002, it was re-released in 3 theaters, and in 2005, the film The Producers was based on the musical. Before we get into the film summary, let's take a look at some of the characters we see. Max Baileystock is the producer. Leo Bloom is the accountant. The various elderly ladies are essentially Max's lovers and future investors. Ulla is the Swedish secretary. Roger Debris is the theater director. Carmen Gia is Roger's partner and assistant. Franz Liebkind is the screenplay writer. And Lorenzo St. Dubois plays the theatrical version of Hitler. And next, we go on to the summary. So this film is set in the late 1960s, and it is about a once successful but now failed producer, Max Baileystock. He convinces an accountant, Leo Bloom, to use creative accounting to help them both make a lot of money. Max and Leo partner up to make a Broadway play that will surely fail. Max raises $1 million, more than is needed to make the play, from his elderly suitors, and sells shares equaling 25,000%. The play will flop, no one will ask for the money or look at the books, and Max and Leo will be rich. They plan to take their gains and move to Rio. The play they choose, Springtime for Hitler, was written by a Nazi sympathizer named Franz Liebkind. They convince Franz that the play is great and will be a big success. Franz believes them and gives them the rights to produce the play. In addition to a bad play, Max chooses a director who is known for terrible play releases. Roger Debris directs the play and a terrible cast of characters to go along with it. Max and Leo are excited for the opening night of the play, knowing everyone will hate it. Unfortunately, the opposite happens. The audience mistakes the play for a dark comedy, and Springtime for Hitler becomes a success. Max and Leo panic and go through numerous scenarios to get out of trouble. One such plan is to blow up the theater. In the end, they are tried and found guilty. Both are sentenced to prison, but they find themselves doing more creative accounting with their play, Prison of Love. And now we're going to get into the 3 ethical theories that are tied into the film. So the definition of deontology is it focuses on the obligations or duties motivating a decision or action. It also focuses on duties, rights, and justice, and the moral standards, principles, and rules. Leo's motivation and justification for his ethical wrongdoing stemmed from the fact that he was not happy and felt underappreciated in his accounting job. It was not until Max smooched Leo that he finally felt happy, and from that point was easily swayed by whatever Max said. When Max wants to break the law, Leo knows it is wrong and even goes into a panic attack. But Leo's sense of moral standards are not strong enough to keep him from doing unethical acts. Leo believes that after the years of unhappiness, he deserves this money and thinks of only his duty to himself and Max, who he idolizes in a way for his unwavering confidence. Max has shown that he is clearly selfish and motivated by greed. He justifies this greed from the fact that he used to be successful and now he has nothing while other producers are living his dream. He even goes so far to be in the company of multiple elderly ladies to steal money from them. Max, in a way, believes he has worked for the money by subjecting himself to a task he did not enjoy. Overall, it is evident that both Max and Leo lack the motivating factors to adhere to the moral standards and principles of society and law. The only consequence they are worried about is getting caught, and their own motivating factors cloud their judgment on how their actions could negatively affect the shareholders and stakeholders.
Virtue ethics is also shown throughout the film. Virtue ethics explores the nature of a decision maker. For one to show virtue ethics through character using personalities, character traits, and the morals of a decision maker. Virtue ethics looks at the individual rather than the entire entity. Virtues are not just inherited, they are taught. A person defines their virtues through demonstration of moral character. Virtue ethics are shown throughout the business world. When you work for a business, you must show virtue ethics while acting in accordance of the business virtues. There can be clash when trying to decide an important business decision while having your own personal virtues. Virtue ethics shown in the movie The Producers. The Producers' opening act has 2 completely opposite men of virtue. Leo's character begins as an honest accountant who shows traits of cowardice but friendly as a reserved man. Max, on the other hand, has lost his young morals. He is a Broadway producer that used to be a wrecking force in this profession, but now has lost his way. Max is shown having several relationships with older women for money. Max shows traits of ambition, but quick-tempered, charismatic, and is very rash. After the first major scene of the movie, we see an almost complete change in Leo's moral character. Once Leo has the bright idea of committing fraud, and his reaction is to first tell Max of this theory, Max, only seeking greed and an escape from the life that he lives now, becomes obsessed with Leo's theory. He persuades Leo, the reserved, closed-minded accountant, into producing a doomed-to-profit musical. Throughout the film, Leo has moments of regret, but they are too minuscule for this newfound traits. Leo battles with his own greed and stupidity for this theory he believed would make Max and himself a lot of money very fast. In the final moments of the film, we see Leo tell the judge that Max's virtues are completely against good nature. We see Leo become more like Max, developing a new personality and different character traits. Leo believes that was manipulated by this man and his morals. In fact, he was the one, and morally he was the one, in fact, who was the one who created the theory. But we see a happy Leo at the film committing fraud still in the prison.
Utilitarianism. It is defined by dictionary.com as the ethical doctrine that virtue is based on utility, and that conduct should be directed towards promoting the greatest happiness and the greatest number of persons. Merriam-Webster defines it as a doctrine that the useful is the good, and that the determining consideration of right conduct should be the usefulness of its consequences, specifically a theory that the aim of action should be the largest possible balance of pleasure over pain, or the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Here are two definitions of the word utilitarianism. They both have a different approach to explaining what this word really means. And even though their words vary, they both tell us that is, in the end, it is the greatest happiness of the greatest number. No matter the definition, we can come to the conclusion that utilitarianism is what a lot of people strive for. It is the common concept of you cannot make everyone happy, but you can try to make the most people happy that you can. Max and Leo did not follow this theory at all. Leo has a conscience, and followed the everyday norms of society. He was easily manipulated when he decided he was tired of being the low man on the totem pole. Max was already a very corrupt individual who took money from little old ladies. Once the two of these men decided to make the worst play ever, they showed that they were all for one. They lived the exact opposite of this theory. Instead of making as many people as possible happy, they focused on themselves being rich. In the end, irony got the best of the situation. Utilitarianism was shown when the play actually made everyone happy but them. This spread the greatest happiness to the greatest number.
Ethical resolution number 1. A lot has changed since the 1960s to now in the accounting world. The standard today of risk auditing was not common in the 60s. Leo focused on backwards accounting, finding past discrepancies. Once the original $2,000 inconsistency was discovered by Leo, should have assist further action in committing fraud. The laws and regulations of the time were not as pronounced, but they still existed. Even though the Sarbanes-Oakley Act had not yet came to the government, did have regulations and standards for proper accounting. Leo mentions this in the film that the proposed scam is illegal, but chooses to not follow his duties as an accountant. Leo could have acted ethically, but not proposing how to make money from a film flop, but by how Max should be maintaining his books and finances. In addition, a conflict of interest is created when Leo lets Max essentially wine and dine him in the city. This breaks accounting professionalism. Avoiding it would have set boundaries between Max and Leo, essentially ethical expectations. Ethical resolution, legalities, cost, and impact. Legalities. The AICPA has produced has procedures for accounting, and Leo was aware of what constituted as unethical accounting. By following the procedures and reporting a fraud, he not only would have been acting ethically but lawfully as well, and would avoided prison time. Cost. Conversely, reporting the $2,000 fraud could have meant jail time and fines for Max. There would not have been any cost for Leo to act ethically. Impact. Max, he may have served jail time. Leo would most likely have remained unhappy in his job and life. Shareholders and stakeholders, the elderly ladies would not have been deceived out of their money. The directors, writers, and actors would not have been deceived into promise of income and fame. Ethical Resolution 2. Leo, in the opening scene, decides that he's going to use creative accounting. A hypothetical producer can make a lot of money using this act. Max pressures Leo in believing that they could in fact accomplish the feat of making money off of a play that does not succeed on Broadway. Max receives a large sum of money from several lovers. Max promised the older women with large returns from the musical, which would be impossible for them to accomplish with the way Max was spending the money that they received. If Leo followed the virtues that he had used to become the man that he was before stepping into Mr. Baileystock's room, he would not be in jail. Leo may not have been the most wealthiest, happiest, but using the virtue ethics that he was raised on would only give him the means of deciding which decision was right or wrong for himself. Virtue ethics focuses on decision-makers' morality. If Leo would have never been tempted by Max's variety of personality traits, Leo did not act in accordance to the laws of accounting and became financially intimate with a client. Ethical Resolution Number 2, Legalities, Cost, and Impacts. Legalities. Leo broke a huge legality with himself. The nature of his virtue ethics were opposite of the character traits that he began with in the movie. When tempered by Max and greed, he becomes entranced with the profit from this theory, and he breaks his own moral code. If Leo followed the example, the Dodd-Frank Act, he would know that his musical could get him into a lot of trouble with the government. By undermining his own personal virtues, he would have seen that the business executives prosecuted from the Dodd-Frank Act had their business destroyed by greed. Cost. By Leo not following his virtue ethics that he started in the movie with, he would not save him from his job and from jail time, and being tormented by the man Max Baileystock. Impact. Max would most likely retain the character traits he kept throughout the film and would have gotten into trouble for taking money from his productions that were not his. Leo would stay the same reserved accountant, not even devising his theory to become rich quick. The poor women would probably still be shown false love from Max for money, that is, until Max went into jail, hypothetically. Those involved with the one and only production of Springtime for Hitler would have never worked for Max and Leo following the patterns of their morality before meeting the producers.
Ethical Resolution 3. In the film, they decide to use creative accounting. This brought two ethical dilemmas. They wanted to collect more money than they actually needed in order to make a play. The plan to run off with the profits and be rich in order to get the money they need. In order to get the money they need, Max sells himself to older women, who then hand him a check, which he ensures is made out to cash, so that he can begin his scheme. These could both be avoided if the two men were ethical. All of this could have been avoided if Leo had been a happier man. He let his emotions get the best of him and helped a bad man break many laws. The legalities. Max gets older women to donate to his place by means of prostitution. He sells his body to convince the women to give him money and then lies to them about owning shares of the profit. Leo knows of his wrongdoings from the beginning and continues to do them when he sees how much money he can have. The cost. They raise $1 million, which they would owe back to these women. This will be hard with all of the money Max has wasted already on many things which they did not need. The impact. Max would have been in jail. Leo would be moping around rubbing his blanket. The innocent women would have kept their money, but the great comedy would have never been performed. The final resolution. The final recommendation is rather simple. The whole dilemma goes back to Leo fixing the $2,000 problem on Max's books, which was done. Max would have gone to jail for being a crook. Leo would have went about life as he would have at the beginning, an innocent little man going about his daily things, not worrying about much, but rubbing his blankie and making people happy. In the end, only one man would have gone to jail, and a lot of elderly women would have kept their money. Thank you for joining us on our wonderful presentation about The Producers. It was a great movie. You should definitely watch it to get a better feel on this presentation. Have a wonderful day.
I also wanted to thank the people who produced The Producers. Thank you, Mel Brooks.